All right, hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. He is the master of cyber farms, Alfredzo B, Nash Jr., and I am the people's chief, Dr. Joseph J. Burt-Miller Jr. We are your hosts for the Cyber Coffee Hour. Alfredzo, Nash, and I are products of Mount Vernon, New York, sharing our experiences and stories and sharing those of our amazing guests. We aim to share knowledge, elevate understanding, and foster a sense of belonging in this vast cyberspace. So for today's show, we will have a coffee chat with the dope SHEEO and Zen workplace guru, Dr. Lisa Marie Lee. Now, Dr. Lisa Marie Lee is the dope CEO, and the Evaluator is a sought after people, culture, and operations solutionist who helps businesses maximize profits by leveraging the power of the employee experience via business research and data science. With a background in the United States Navy and a PhD in education, she is passionate about solving workplace issues and has conducted groundbreaking research on how leaders influence performance. Dr. Lee has worked with executive level professionals and organizations, empowering them to strengthen their professional skills and brands through effective, compassionate, and human centered leadership. Dr. Lisa, welcome to the Cyber Coffee Hour.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Very nice.
You know, this feels quite familiar. I feel like Dr. Lisa, we've been on, almost feel like deja vu, like we've done something like this before.
Yes. It's been a long time coming, making my way over here. Glad to be here. I'm
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for including me in the loop.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you.
All right. So, so before we get to it, I know, as we're recording this, it is Memorial Day weekend. Just want to, of course, just remember those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice for this country. So as we, go out, we have barbecues, grilling, hang out with friends, family. Cellular time. I just remember those who've, like I said, made it possible for us to do that on this Memorial Day weekend. So with that, Dr. Lisa, do you have any plans for this weekend?
I'm a swim mom. No.
Yeah.
We're in competition season.
Wow.
So I will be doing that, But of course I grill all the time, so I'm gonna be cooking. Always cooking.
Gotcha. Mr. Nash, what about you, sir?
Same. I was advised not to go in the garden today, so I've been cleaning grills, getting a party started, cleaning my outdoor table and setup. I'm gonna have 2 grills on rotation and get this going.
Oh wow! Wait, you're manning both grills, or you have somebody helping?
So we call it offsite. We have an electric grill. My girlfriend's gonna help with that for the kiddos, all the kiddos stuff and veggies and stuff, and that's closer to our house. And then in the back, where the outliers go, the outcasts go, there's a smoker and a small grill that my cousin gave me. So I hang out there and put the big stuff on that.
Wow, okay.
I duct taped that together. I didn't really have that kind of setup. It took piecing it together and getting it ready.
Nice.
Wow. Okay. All right, man.
Electric grill.
Yeah, electric grill's closer to the house. It's like a pun on, like, if it rains or the grid is down, we could plug it into anything.
Cool. I never even heard of that.
Yeah, it saved our lives during the pandemic. We had 2. We actually burnt through one, which was through the pandemic. We destroyed the coiling, inside of it. And then we got the George Foreman patio grill, specific, no plug. They don't pay us, but it's been a tank. It's been reliable throughout the rest of the pandemic.
I have to invest in learning about that. Yeah. It's interesting.
And they make an indoor one too. So they make one you could take off and place on the table. Yeah, so that's why I hung on to it. I was fussing a little bit and squabbling cleaning it, but now I like re-cleaning it and using it for the season.
Okay. Yes.
Man,
I understand that.
George Foreman to this day is still making money off of that grill, man.
Yeah, man, it's like a tank. And they there's so many. I hate to say this, but there's so many knockoffs that you gotta like baseline them and say, hey, if this one doesn't work outside, I won't bring it inside because it won't last. The other ones don't really last, but that one did. It's built like a tank. I'd like to do nothing but clean it.
Okay, good. Definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, yeah, Dr. Lisa, again, thank you for being on the show. But as we get into this, if you could just share maybe some insights, like from your experience, in the United States Navy and how it influenced your approach to leadership and workplace culture.
Wow.
There
I
it is.
think when you say that, I mean, really, it helped me to understand what leadership truly is. And that's probably why I'm one of few that do the type of work that I do. When I joined the Navy, I was 17 years old. So when I got on my first ship, I was 17. Didn't know anything. Didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to I just knew I graduated early. I graduated when I was 16 because I hated high school.
Oh,
And
don't
I
we all?
graduated out of West Virginia. So, ain't nothing in West Virginia, there's not really any jobs there. And what are you to do but join the military or get a government job? I'm a product of the Department of State. My mom worked at the Department of State. She served 25 years. I knew I didn't really want to do civil service at that time. So next step is government, as far as military. And so 17, my mom signed me up. And there I went. I was off to boot camp. And then after almost 9 months, finally made it to my true designation, my ship, USS Carl Vinson. And from there, I was thrown into this management leadership position. For those that don't know, I was a CS, a culinary specialist is what they call them now. At that time, when I first started, was an MS, so mess management specialist. It's pretty much event planning, restaurant management, hotel management. That's how it would, or also supply, shipping and receiving, even leading into what's it called? I'm trying to think. Like, I can't think of it right now. It'll come to me.
It's all good.
But shipping and receiving, so like Amazon and all that.
Okay.
I forget what the career is, where you're shipping all around the world and all of that. I can't think of the word right now.
Logistics?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Logistics. Yes,
Boom.
logistics. It
Ding, ding, ding.
leans into logistics. Yes, but yeah, management. Logistics operations and everything via food. So same thing, or any type of supply, shipping and receiving, all of that, supply management. And I was 17 and I was thrusted into really managing 50 people in a kitchen, a crazy kitchen.
Nice.
And just figuring it out as I went. There was no, they tell you what to do, but there's no true manual. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's where I understood the importance of leadership and understanding that how I'm leading is going to emulate how others perform. And even if I don't know the answer, I can't pretend to act like I know the answer, and it's okay to ask questions because I was new. But I had people that were older than me, outrank me, and I'm in charge of them. So it's one of those things where you have to understand how to humble yourself and to understand what morale is within the environment that you're in. And we call it morale in the military, but out in civilian world, it's culture. That's the new thing, culture. But it's just morale, how people feel. And you're going to have an uprising if you don't treat people fairly and you don't respect people. And that's pretty much the bottom line when it comes to leadership and how you lead effectively, whether you're a good leader or a bad leader. And that's all on whoever is looking on the outside within that group. Do you think that person's a bad person or not? How they lead, is based on their ability to understand what the people they're trying to lead needs. And that's
Dr. Lisa, I'm just gonna say that's inspiring as hell. I'm not even gonna front. Like, you hit I think the issue a lot of us have in the private sector is the humility around culture. You said people think, oh, there's gonna be a revolt, but there never really is in the private sector. But you hit the ball out the park, and it's inspiring. And no, I'm not fronting. Like, being for real on our show, that's inspiring as hell. Because I could imagine some hangry people throwing trays.
Yeah,
and
they will
in the private. Yeah, well, even in the private sector, without that discipline, because that's another thing I hear a call back to that unfortunately civilians don't have. And I'm speaking to the pulpit here, not to start the sermon, but a lot of people, I had to learn discipline the hard way. So when you said it, hey, keep people's morale, and that ties to culture, I heard the humility in that. I heard the leadership in that. So that's inspiring. That's really cool.
Thank you. Hope to inspire someone else that's listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, right, your work leverages employee experience to maximize profits, right? So we have to tie back to that. How do you believe prioritizing employees' well-being alongside with the morale, culture, trust, and and all that, how does it contribute to a company's bottom line, the profits?
I think it's everything that, I mean, the employee is your bottom line. They're the key to the bottom line. And that, there is no profits if you're not recognizing that as a leader or as a business owner or founder, even as a solopreneur, that you are the employee. Even if you're doing an AI ran business, you're still the employee because you're making sure that it's running effectively.
Right.
That's first and foremost, understanding that the employee is the heartbeat of the business, right? And once you understand that, then you know that you need to focus on the needs of the employee for the needs of the business to be met, for there to be a success, for there to be profits. Employees must be prioritized from the beginning. There's no other way around it.
Okay, and tagging along on that, right? So you said you're how do you say that? SHEEO, right?
Dope
All right,
SHEEO.
dope SHEEO. My
Yeah, don't forget
apologies.
the dope.
Yes,
Don't
'cause
forget
I'm
the
dope.
dope.
You
I
know
dig
I'm
it. I
dope.
dig it. I dig it.
I'm the dope girl.
As a people, culture, and operation solutionist, what common workplace issues do you encounter, and how do you solve them along the lines of that people culture?
It's really just the key issue to almost every workplace problem is just communication. That's usually the main issue. So it's helping people to understand how to communicate and relate to others so that they can work together to achieve a common goal. So definitely it's communication when you look at the bottom line. But when you delve into any workplace issue, more than likely is going to relate to communication. Whether it's an understanding of why something's happening, how someone's perceived what someone said and misinterpreted it, or just how something is written. I read it one way, you read it another way. So
Right.
it's definitely communication overall. And then, of course, how you relate to others, your willingness to understand how others feel, their willingness to understand how you feel, the true investment overall in just how we communicate, why we're communicating a certain way, our ability to be open and honest and have integrity and truly lead by example.
Do you think true leaders invest in that empathy? To your point, I heard that. Do you think today, why we've gotten away from some of the issues, that people don't invest in empathy at all as leaders?
I would have to say yes. I think going back to saying, leaders are leading from a example approach, and a lot of people will go into a new position and they're leading based on what they've learned or what they assume. And we have to also remember, a lot of people, they go and they take courses, they get degrees, right? And so we're leading from this societal idea of what should be, instead of delving deeper based on what one culture needs versus another culture. Because you have to understand that not every business is the same, and we are all different. We all have different needs. We all experience things differently. So this idea of a best practice approach works for every environment is not necessarily true. And I think that that's where it first gets lost, and then we create a domino effect, by leading people based on this best practice understanding, which in most cases, right now we're learning since the pandemic, and now we're in this new world, this new operation of how businesses are operating. Those former best practices don't necessarily work now, so all businesses are relearning how they need to operate, and leaders are even trying to figure it out while still holding on to the idea that things should remain the same as they were previously. It's really just trying to true leadership is understanding when change is needed, right? So we're kind of in this tug of war when you look at different businesses and what they're experiencing, and it's all leading back to the willingness to change and accept change, even when we look at generative AI and how it's creating new opportunities. And then you have pushback against that, and then you have those that are willing to accept it. Then you have those that are throwing millions and billions into implementing it with not knowing what's going to come out on the end. Right. So it's this rush for change, but we don't know what that is. We're not knowing how that's going to impact us, but we're still holding on to the ideas of the past. So we're kind of in this interesting melting pot of what is really going on.
That rush sounds like societal panic to me.
Yes. Yes, no one really knows what's going on. And like I said, because everyone's holding on to these best practices, right? So that means you don't really know how your business operates as a leader. You don't really know what your employees are thinking, what they truly expect of you, what you really expect of them, besides seeing, high earnings. Other than that, and your idea of what productivity is, right? Because there's this disconnect. And it's just because there's a cycle of not knowing how to communicate. With a lot of the clients that I've worked with, a lot of leaders, especially if they're younger leaders, they haven't really been taught how to, or what is to expect, as a leader. So they're kind of learning as they go. And then the others are just following suit from what they're mimicking for the most part.
That's very interesting because so when we talk about, of course, like workplace culture,
Mhm.
I think from what I've seen in the civil government space is that sometimes you have a clash between how things were, quote unquote, how things were done back in the day or in the
Mhm.
old day. And then you have this new generation or a new way of thinking of how business should be done. And it clashes. One topic real quickly is like the remote work.
Mhm.
The way we do work, whether it should be in office or we're allowed to work from home. The pandemic was probably like the greatest science experiment ever because in
Mhm.
that regard, because those that were opposed to remote work at that point in time had no choice but to do it,
Yeah.
given the circumstances. And then a lot of organizations started to realize, hey, this can actually work. And then now, as time has gone on, as we got further away from the pandemic, now you're starting to see more, like you said, some of these leaders that are I guess the old mindset, they want to keep old ways intact and want to bring employees back in. And it caused a disruption because you see, some employees, they're like, all right, well, I'm going to move on to somewhere else or maybe
Yeah.
start my own business or what have you. Because, as you said, those best practices or how things were done back in the day or my day, that they're not working anymore.
Mhm.
It's not the only way, basically. I
Yes.
think you have to be, as a leader, you do have to be open to, as time goes on, things change, new technology, especially when you're talking about within cybersecurity. There's always going to be new things coming out, new technologies you have to be aware of, keep yourself educated on. You can't stay stuck in the mud, on one single thing. You have to be able to have that growth mindset and be able to, keep moving as time goes on. But
One reflection too, real quick, Joseph. Sorry, Dr.
mhm.
Joseph. One reflection too. And in my personal professional experience, I had to be more empathetic of those folks that
Mhm.
didn't accept telework, because I have friends that have
Mhm.
been remote for 10, 15 years prior to the pandemic. Right?
Yeah.
When I dipped my toes in the public space, they called it telework, and I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
I had to stop and lead myself through the conversation, because you're right. There is a chip on the younger folks, sort of like, "Why don't you know how to work?" Like,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
even in what
Yeah.
I heard in Dr. Lisa's explanation is I had to be empathetic of those folks that panicked because they were forced to work remote. You know what I mean? They were forced to work remote and they never done it in a 10, 15-year period. I had to even a chip on my shoulder, like, how haven't y'all done this? And so it comes full circle too for the younger crowd going into public space, just try to be understanding of what that does to somebody's career and their lifestyle. Because the
Yes.
pandemic threw a lot of those folks out there when they weren't really necessarily equipped to be remote or had the
Mhm.
permission. Let's just be real. Some of them didn't have the permission to telework and be at home and VPN and all that stuff. So I had to check myself before I wrecked myself too, coming into that side to understand
Yeah.
that some folks were hurting during that period of time.
Yeah.
I think with that too, it exposed skill sets. It exposed real skill
Oh
sets
yeah, 100%.
because
Yeah.
because that's when you start finding out, like, some people didn't even know how to turn on a computer, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I think they really relied on being in the office, having, the on-site help desk team to help out, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But now when you said I gotta work from home, I gotta connect to a VPN, or what's
Yeah.
that? I was like, oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So
I'd like
some
to
people
piggyback
really
on
had a
that.
hard time with that.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
I like to piggyback on that.
Mhm.
I know I mentioned communication as well, but also another big one is how you support and your role as a
Mm-hmm.
leader That
Mm.
I like
also
that. I
falls
like
into it
that.
too, but I'm saying communication because I'm thinking of it as, oh, a leader would know how to communicate.
Right.
But it's more
Right.
than that, because I'm thinking of it as a broader thought. But once you whittle down, it's really the leader understanding their role. So really, how are they
Mm.
going to support employees continuously throughout all the changes and all the aspects of the business, right? So that's where that would lead into.
Absolutely.
What is leadership's role as it would have been during that time and still is, right? How do you
Hmm.
support employees that are teleworking?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So, your research on how leaders influence performance is intriguing. Could you highlight like some key findings or strategies leaders could implement to enhance like team performance?
It's really just you got to get in and you got to ask questions. That's what I'm the evaluator. That's what I do. I'm asking questions. So I say evaluate. It just means I'm coming in and I'm being a nerd and being nosy.
Right.
And I'm asking questions. I'm really wanting to know those answers. And it's not just sending out surveys, right? It's you truly building on relationships through communication, as I said earlier, but knowing what you're looking for, really intrigued about every individual. I know it's impossible. A lot of businesses have thousands of employees, but you got to be able to step into these environments where they are and really communicate and look at the problems that they're dealing with, the barriers that they're dealing with, things that they may feel they need so that they're able to be more effective. What's going on with how we're hiring? Why are we having these issues with people feeling as though there's issues with hiring or lack thereof? And just all the different issues that are going on in the world. I know a lot of companies, when you look at, some would have pushback, right, with what I'm saying. So I'm going to
Hmm.
break down. So like, we'll see how a lot with the TikTok situation and a lot of people that were working in the tech industry, they would go on TikTok and they would talk about what they did on their jobs and how they were wasting time and not being productive, right? And then turning around, now all these jobs are gone, right? So that would be the pushback to what I'm trying to say. Why didn't
What
you
can I?
know? You should have already known. Though all of that, as far as like having gourmet chefs and all that food is not being utilized and eaten, they're throwing it away. So it's not a
Right.
shock that it was more an embarrassment, right? That
Mm.
you don't know your employees and you don't know your workspace and how people are working, and you're realizing that you don't like it. You don't like it. You don't like it. Let's just put it clear. You don't like it, but you think you can fire people, right? And then replace with AI or whatever you're doing. Or actually they're replacing with people from overseas.
Mm.
That's pretty
Right.
much what's going on now. You're hiring from overseas at a lower cost, right? Because you realize you were spending too much, but you're still not winning in the end. You may
Yeah. So
think you are, but you're not.
I have a soft spot for this. I'm gonna try to get it out too
Yeah.
because you hit on something that's been the bane of my existence, at least in the private sector, right? And I want to share
Mhm.
it with both of you because a lot of those TikToks are around, I would say, a faulty evaluation called coaching plans or PIPs.
Mhm.
Now, those I've been on two sides of those, right? And I have never seen it in the public sector. So, folks that I've tried to explain it to in both journeys that I've recently
Mhm.
done, they're like, "What's that?" Some do. Some people are savvy. They've dabbled in both, like myself. But coming over, I really hate that process. I hate that peer stack ranking evaluation of, hey,
Yes.
you're a senior principal staff. Let's make a blanket of your skill sets, regardless of your adversity, regardless of the attrition in the company. And get some shade for that too, because I know the pushback you're
Mhm.
talking about. But then they start downsizing based on the number and head count. So
Yes.
can you tell me a better means of evaluating existing staff, existing headcount beyond just pipping them, beyond just coaching? Because that's what's making it to TikTok, whether we like it or not. Right? People are
Um,
putting those evaluations out there to break them open.
when I approach evaluation, though, I'm all about the human factor, human performance improvement. That's my methodology. So there's so many different frameworks that go into it, but it's really all about, how employees are perceiving and using whatever investment, right? And that's how you determine the effectiveness of it.
Mm.
So it's more not, well, yeah, you could say performance leading into that, right? But it's And when you're measuring performance, it's not necessarily like a test. No, not everyone tests well. So I'm from the background that a test doesn't determine performance. That
Mhm.
right there, that X's out all these other ideas of how businesses are measuring performance. A test does not measure intelligence, really. It truly doesn't, because research has shown that someone may test well and they may know the knowledge, but can't actually do the hands-on work. And they may not know all the true information because you're just measuring one aspect of it. So that's one way that you can understand that that's how a lot of businesses are taking the wrong approach, because you're just automatically, well, you did poorly, you got to go. It's more on your way, on your ability to actually achieve accomplishments. What are you accomplishing? What are you bringing to the table? You know, because you as an employee and then the employer, it's a relationship. It's a working relationship, and you're giving, and they're supposed to give to you via compensation, right? And investing in you versus investing in your training and your knowledge and all of that in your compensation package, and making sure that you're treated well and fairly, and, you know, supporting you throughout the process. And so that's what you get. So if someone is not able to effectively bring accomplishments and achievements into an environment, and how do you measure that, right? Well, it depends on what. Give me an example. Give me an example.
A three-time cybersecurity masters aligned to risk and management, and there's no cybersecurity role in your company. Go.
Okay. So yeah. So it would be. What do you mean by there's no role? Okay.
They don't have a cybersecurity. I don't want to say mission because that's the wrong term, but they don't have like a cybersecurity engineer or department to defend the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But you're somebody that may have, CYSA plus, a master's, career experience that you're bringing in, and you're too new to evaluate.
Yeah.
You're too new to take that test. You've only been there 6 months.
You just
Yeah.
step in. Well, that's
Right.
their fault. That's not really your fault, right?
Right. So how do you because all right, I'll throw myself on this grenade because I love it
Okay.
right now. You come into a company stacked with a career roadmap because you've been lumped upside the head, myself included. I have friends that shout out to everybody that knows who knows, right? On LinkedIn that's going through this now. They're open to work, right? They've
Yes.
had a career experience in the private sector mostly. I'm not going to touch the public sector, but in the private side mostly, they get 6 months in the company, coaching plan. They get another 6 months outside of that coaching plan. They get past it, no career progression internally to another team because you had the coaching. Right. So now now we're at 18 months. 18 months come by and they're ready to pip you. But they didn't have your skill set, 18 months ago. So that's what we're dealing with in the private sector, unfortunately.
So then it would really be more you becoming the evaluator of your own self. So that's where you as an individual would have to step in and then bring it to them so that they would be held accountable. You know what I mean? So, because they're not keeping account. They don't really know what they're looking for. It seems like there's no real measurement outside of them putting you in some coaching. Like, you don't really know what you're looking for. That's what it sounds like to me.
It does, and that's to get ahead of it. Yeah, you got to do resume recitals. You got to keep a journal. I'm be real. I've done this for about 10, 15 years, and I've advised some mentees to do the same. The issue is you stack rank yourself. They stack rank you against somebody that's your level or higher. But they don't go lower and say, go train folks that need your skill set unless without the compensation, to your point, you can. But then it becomes a stretch role. I know we've heard that too. No one wants to stretch themselves that thin, so they eventually wind up exiting.
Well, that's the point. Sounds like that's the point.
I get it.
That's sad.
And that's cyber
awful
for you folks.
Because there's nothing really to evaluate, right? They don't want to evaluate. There's no structure. There's no framework. They're just throwing you into a little program and kind of acting like, oh, well, you're over here. There's no real way to leverage you.
They're hoping that it'll just take care of itself.
Yes. There's no real measurement there. So that's why I'm like, what? There's no framework, and there's no way to leverage you and move you up.
So is the
You know,
coaching plan?
that spot is already filled, right? So where are you to go?
There it is. That's the part.
It's intentional. They don't want you to go anywhere.
Right.
Without saying they want, it's a way
So
of
get a coaching plan.
it's a
And get
phase
a PIP.
out. What do they call it? When quiet firing.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. And so that PIP is the means to measure where they don't know how to evaluate you, is what you're
Yeah, because
okay.
I mean, what are you measuring if you're not really giving me true objectives to accomplish? So you're not really measuring anything, because that's what you're doing. You're looking to measure my accomplishments, but outside of, you said the coaching program, but outside of that, like, we already know what that program is for. So you're not really looking for how I'm performing truly, right?
The accolades.
Yeah.
What I've done for this so I'm salty, I'll be real, but no one looks at what you've done for the company to lead into the coaching plan prior to your journal, your self-assessment, your peer ranking. All of that is like months ago. It's only when you stop really being stretched to, like, the compensation point, stretched to where they can't afford your headcount, that you start to realize.
But there isn't even like, when you go into the coaching plan, is there like an objective afterwards? Like, what's the outcome expected?
There's a framework, so there's a lot of things. So there's a lot of things like results driven. There might be like you said, a coding challenge test. There might be a new product delivery. There's a whole litany of, like, and this is why I brought it here too, because I know I'm listening to folks on both sides, public and private, and I'm starting to realize that doesn't map in the public sector at all. Right? So coming out of public to private, that's the expectation that just doesn't map very well. There's coding challenges. I throw that out there. Last 10 or so years, it's been those. There's been multiple levels of screening interviews on the plan internally and transitioning to another team. They try to baseline you and say, well, you don't compare to 20 peers.
Yeah, but after that, it's still not an end game. That just sounds like continuous, like training and development type stuff.
Some call it technical development programs. Yep.
It doesn't feel like it's moving into an official position. That's why I said, well, where is the end goal?
To know some of these companies, because it doesn't look like to your point, it looks like it's the PIP. The end game is either you under promise or over delivered, right? So you may be, slipping on coding, or you might not be the leader that you explain to them, like you explain the leadership process. They can't fire the leader right away, so they get rid of the head count, right? To wake that leader up and baseline them. In the private sector, again, knock on wood. The second side is, if you're a staff engineer, and I'm shout out to my friends that look at me on LinkedIn, right? You might be trying to punch up. You might be already qualified to say, hey, I could help the director out deliver this thing, but there's no ceiling. There's no role for you. You're not going to cross your boss, right?
I'm confused because, like, why? I mean, like, I haven't really been investing in, me and Dr. Joseph haven't been doing our podcast. Know a lot more about the hiring and retention of the field. But I don't understand why there's no role when I hear that there's open positions, and so that's why that's another reason why I'm a little confused as well.
Folks may not have afforded it, depending on what side of the fence you are. There may be an open position, but there may not be the budget. So we could talk about
lack of budget.
Yeah, we could talk about the low ball tactics, the coverage of head count, the stretch rolls. There's a subculture that they put one person in the field, maybe 4 seats, let's say.
So right? That's where the evaluation would come in as to why why is there no budget? Are we mitigating risk, or are we wanting them to happen? Like,
that's what we leave the world by.
So that, as an evaluator, that's where the problem is. That's your major problem, is the budget, and that would lead into, I forgot what it's called. Y'all tell me, whoever is in charge of it.
Well, CFO, attrition.
Yes,
that's the attrition card.
Yes. That would be in their responsibility, because they're the ones managing the budget. They're overseeing. They're the ones in the executive position, in the executive role, in the C-suite at the table. And that's where they would also need to if they were smart, look at HR and talk about how you're hindering people from being able to effectively work together, and how they can collaborate to try to increase that budget by looking at, because HR would be the ones looking at how people are performing or having an idea of it. Of course, they wouldn't know all the technicalities of it, but they would have the idea of how everyone's performing, where there are areas that are hindering them, why is there no growth when there is opportunity and need for it. So that's where that collaboration would need to come in. And then, championing the idea of why there needs to be more investment. Obviously, we see all these horrible stories daily about cyber attacks, so there's no need to delve deep into research. And I'm sure that, there's issues that are probably already occurring and concerns within the business as well. So linking that to the human need and, using that as a way to justify for more funding so that there can be more hiring and obviously probably more training, more investment in technology just for continuous improvement and to be proactive.
Approved. That sounds like approved retention strategies for me. Let's get these directors on the line.
Right. So Dr. Lisa, so as one who's recently stepped into leadership role, and for myself, I do incorporate a human-centric leadership methodology, and we definitely have that in common as you use human-centered leadership as well. How do you define it? From your perspective, and like what practical steps can leaders take to incorporate human-centered approaches into their management style?
Just the understanding that humans matter, we matter. I mean, you as a leader, you matter. Right. You're a human.
Don't let Skynet tell you otherwise.
We can't forget that. You cannot forget that no matter with all the technology out here, without the human, there isn't even technology, right? Even in the Matrix, they were using us to survive.
Batteries, right? Right.
So, it's first understanding that. I think that's first and foremost. Definitely, Dr. Joseph, as you know, you gotta understand everyone's perspective, right? And it's okay to be the bad guy, but you still gotta, you gotta deliver it in a human way. The human approach is the respectable approach. So always, being respectful of everyone, understanding everybody's perspective, always having the understanding that we all differ, and just because we differ doesn't mean we aren't the same, So
it's part
that's
of the problem. Sorry, my bad.
Go ahead.
It's part of the problem. Most leaders are okay with being a bad guy. Like that today, again, I've been through my walk, so I'm not gonna throw my stuff out there, but it seems most leadership is okay with being the bad guy. It's okay to let go 20% of the staff.
It's easier that way.
Yeah.
It's easier nowadays to be the bad guy than the nice guy. No one's really nice anymore, especially now. With social media, look how people talk to people. Look how we act towards people. No one is covert about their intentions pretty much anymore. It's straight out in the open, and it's up to you to believe it or live in denial, right? About what someone says. No one's hiding anymore. And what is that? Where someone shows you who they truly are the first time, believe them. Nowadays, no, you don't even have to do that because it's right there. It's plain as day. No one's really hiding
the data.
Right. And with that, from my experience, of course, having a military background as well, just thinking about just over the course of my career, including military, just having my experience with different types of leadership, just categorize them as, good and bad leadership, and I think we both know how to define that. But,
that's synonymous with toxic leadership?
Yeah, just lump that into bed. Okay. That type of leadership where it doesn't really get much out of you. You do the very bare minimum. As soon as it hits 4 o'clock, you're out. You're not doing a second more. But then on the flip side, when you have the more favorable or good leadership, you're motivated. You're willing to go above and beyond. For him or her. And you see it in the results. You see it in the team that you work with, the chemistry that's built. And I've always, for myself, I think, Alfredzo knows this as well. Like I've always compared cybersecurity with sports. I do make that quite synonymous quite a bit, because I believe that, you know, same thing with a sports team. You know, you're trying to, you know, as a coach for a sports team, you're trying to pull, you know, multiple different personalities together for one common goal. And, you know, that in the case of sports, you're trying to work towards a championship. Then cybersecurity is the same thing. You're pulling people from different backgrounds, races, what have you, personalities. You have to learn how to reach them, how to get their max potential out of them. Because as you mentioned, Dr. Lisa, everyone is different.
Yes.
So all human, you have to, what one approach may work for one person is not necessarily going to work for the second person, or the other person, I should say.
Yeah.
So as a leader, you have to be cognizant of that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the willingness to invest in understanding. You know, the willingness to go to take that next step to understand all perspectives. And as you were saying, with bad leadership, those that are just here to do the bare minimum and then clock out.
Yeah.
I think
very interesting.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I won't rant, but I think the bare minimum is like accepting the risk for a breach. Right, like we're okay with that, and then never mind the folks that are screaming from a hill that says, "Well, we can prevent a breach proactively." You know, let me show you how, or let me train a few folks to show you how, or let me be trained to train. Like I'm playing this card a lot, but we train trainers. Right, train folks to lead, train the engineers to lead. If they don't want to, it's okay too. Like, just prevent the breach. Win the championship, to Dr. Joseph's point. Losing the championship is getting breached 5 or 6 times left and right. And if somebody comes into your organization from an organization that may or may not have been breached, and you don't want to hear them, well, you already signed up for losing. In my opinion, you already signed up. You're already what, 10-0 in the championship. You know.
So, no, this is good. And again, we're here with Dr. Lisa, the dope SHEEO, here on the Cyber Coffee Hour. So please like, share, and subscribe. So, Dr. Lisa, as we make a little transition here, just learn a little bit more about you and what you like to do outside of your day-to-day work. But when we talk about cybersecurity, how would you say cybersecurity has impacted your career, business endeavors, and lifestyle?
Oh gosh, I think I first started really understanding it, I guess, and really wanting to know more about it would be more in my personal life. I feel like I'm always attached to some kind of cyber attack from some company, whether it's Xfinity or OPM or the Veterans Affairs.
For
Why
sure.
is my information keep becoming compromised?
That's a good way to look at it, right?
And so that's
nice
really where I am with
Yeah.
that. And I'm trying professionally to see, with the type of work that I do, where do I fit in to keep this from happening? So in a nutshell, that's how it's impacted me and where I feel I can be of service. It's so interesting because, for those that don't know, me and Dr. Joseph randomly just met on LinkedIn when he had first got his degree in the mail from Capella. And I had hopped in the comments and said, "Congratulations, doctor." And fast forward, here we are, what, 2 years? Is it 2 years?
That sounds about right. It's 2 years.
2 years later.
That sounds about right.
Later, I'm still here, you know. And it's just the fate of it, right? Because I was curious about cyber. I didn't understand what it was or what I needed to do, right? To truly be of service. I'm all about being of service. You hear me saying it. That's what I do. That's why I have the business that I have, because I know that I'm good at, helping people to relate, to understand why problems occur. That's pretty much what I do. And I do it through questions and answers and surveys. Nice nerdy approach, but
we call those frameworks.
Yes, exactly.
So where did you fit? So it sounds like you were constantly being attacked, and it sounds like you evaluated that and defend against it, or defend forward, like a lot of folks like to say. Which frameworks did you seem to align yourself to? Like, hey, could this help me against this? Or could this help me get my data back? Like, are there some frameworks out there that you like particularly?
I don't even know.
Okay.
No, I don't even know. I'm just trying to because I'm still trying to figure out where I can be of service in the cyber field. So outside of me just learning how to protect my information and, constantly evaluating it and making sure that even though it's stolen, I'm not being compromised financially or someone's out there with my name or whatever, So other than that, I've not delved deeper than that, outside of learning how to protect my information and how I store information and passwords and different things like that. And even with my business and even with people that I know, informing them of different ways. But I'm still looking at how, from my frameworks of my methodology that I use, how can I implement that into the cyber field, right?
Oh
What
yeah.
does
So
that look like? So that's why I said I don't know, because I'm trying to see where I fit in and what does that look like. And as
we
you
hope to
said,
help you out with that on the side. With
yeah, remember
our
when,
powers combined,
yeah,
we can help you with that one.
yeah. So it's like, how do I incorporate what I do into cyber? Just like I was asking the questions earlier of, well, where's the end game? Like, what is the purpose of all of that? And obviously the lack of funding. So why are we not funding when we know that funding is needed? It's kind of obvious funding is needed. So it's not like I had to really bring out a survey.
Well, on the gun, you just triggered another episode. That's gonna probably be another episode for us for real. If you don't mind, what obstacles have you overcome to arrive where you are today with your business and everything like that?
Let's see. I feel like I'm always dealing with an obstacle because the type of work I do, it takes a lot of funding, so it's the willingness of people to want to invest in their business. And when I say invest in their business, they think that me doing this branding and all that, I do invest in my business, but it's not really just that. Even if you're a solopreneur, you cannot always know how your clients feel based on how you're performing, right? Because they're the employee. So it's the willingness to hear criticism. We as leaders or we as founders, business owners, we think we know it all. We know what we're doing, and if we don't know it all, we have people around us, they may tell us that we don't know it all, but they're still not being truly honest. We as humans have a tendency to conform with the people that are around us, and uplift versus be truly transparent at times. So it's that willingness to invest in having someone that's going to come in and be honest with you. And that's third party, right? Just like with a corporation, third party is usually better if the third party is not
PAOs, that's what we
compromised.
call them. Yeah.
It's having the freedom of free from bias and open and honest, and even providing a comfort for those that are going to be dealing with someone that's third party, ensuring that they're protected, their information and their answers and all that are protected. It's just a lot that goes into it. It's expensive, not just monetarily expensive, but emotionally. Some situations are very, very sensitive. So people don't want to be a part of it because they may feel vulnerable.
So as a dope SHEEO, what do you use as far as to get you through the day? I mean, is it coffee, tea, or is there a certain beverage you like your go-to?
Oh my God. Let me see. And now I do not drink coffee. I am a water girl. I do like hibiscus tea, or I like lavender tea, I like my wine and beer.
Nice. Are there any infusions in that case then? Do you do infusion teas?
No. I like it simple.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and then of course exercise. Exercise is my drug of choice. I work out 6 times a week.
That's probably the best one of them all, honestly. That's good. So, what are some of your hobbies? Interests? I know you just mentioned with working out, but yeah, well, I guess what are some of the other things you like to do? Outside of work.
Oh gosh, I'm a mom. I don't have a life.
Nice.
My daughter is 15, so she's a competitive swimmer. Nice. Oh Lord, we're trying to drop these times. She wants to swim in college, y'all. So we're working on that. And, she's a competitive swimmer. So it's always competition season. So she's on a new schedule. So I'm at the pool 4 a.m. 4 a.m. She gets up, she goes to pool.
What?
And then she
Wow.
she does aerials. Aerials, for those that don't know, is like trapeze, silks, lyra. You know, when you see at the circus and they're all, you know, twirling. Yeah. So she does that as well. So technically she's a dual athlete. So what does that look like? You know, what is she going to do when she grows up? What does that look like? How do we incorporate that into a career? So that's kind of where I am with that. Outside of doing mom stuff, I do love to cook, and I have a garden.
Wait. A garden?
Yes, I do. I have a garden.
Okay, what are you growing? Growing is knowing, by the way. What are you
growing is knowing. Right now, what do I have right now? All my greens have turned to seed. All my broccoli, Brussels sprouts, so they're all bolted, waiting on seed. Let's see. I'm finally got my squash coming up. I did not do watermelon this year. No, I did not. I didn't do corn this year. Corn's kind of messy. So many spores. Space. Yeah, there's a lot of spores and stuff. And of course tomatoes and cucumbers, garlic, onions, and an herb garden as well, right? Gotta have herb garden. So and then I have plants too.
I'm not on that level. I have accidental pumpkins because I just threw pumpkin seeds out in my
compost. I love volunteers. Those are the fun.
Right. There you go. And then I'm doing perennials because I'm scared of my soil. I'm very scared of my soil, making my family sick and things like that. So I've got a little container garden of perennials that I'm gonna plant. I've been planting and trying to clean up the soil for edibles. So I track that.
I love that.
That's a cool hobby.
I have a couple edibles. I always say the name wrong. Neustrum. Am I saying the name?
I'm not even gonna try. I know what you're talking about.
I have those, and of course sunflower seeds and then dill. I started my packets from Whole Foods. I like to get my seeds from there. I like Whole Foods.
How did you do with the dill? I did burpees dill and I wasn't successful. How did you get that to go?
It's so hot here, so I can't really. I think that's something I would have to do inside. That's because my backyard has a lot of sun. But I see a lot of people, they get their cilantro to grow just as tall as me. I'm 5'2", and it'd be like tall as me, bolted here. Lucky. But they have a lot of shade. So I don't have shade. I just have straight sun. I used to have a lot of trees, and I cut a lot of the oak trees that I did have because it was like messing up my ground and starting to mess up the leveling of the ground and the plumbing and stuff because I have a lot of trees around me. So I had to get rid of that. So now everything is hot, hence my fan. It's hot.
That's amazing. Well, Dr. Lisa, this was we had a great time with you here on the Cyber Coffee Hour. Yeah. And before we go, anything you want to share with the audience before we roll out?
I have no idea. That kind of threw me off. I don't know. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. You know, got a question? Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
There you have it. Thank you. And I thank you for those watching and tuning in to the Cyber Coffee Hour. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on all of our platforms. You can find the Cyber Coffee Hour on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. That's it. That's a wrap. We out of here. Peace.
Hey, bye. Thank you.
See ya.